I thought my girlfriend would never cheat on me because she was a good girl from a strict home, but I was very wrong. Hi everyone. I'm Omar, 25 years old, and the reason I'm writing this is to get it off my chest. I'm not seeking advice or support, though if anyone wants to comment, feel free. I just need it recorded somewhere because honestly, my life has just turned 180 degrees. Before telling you what happened, I need to give some context. I've always been a quiet guy, not someone with a long list of girlfriends or flings. However, the few relationships I've had ended in ways that left me deeply hurt. My first girlfriend was when I was 18. She was a girl I met in high school, one of those always surrounded by people. She was the life of the party, always smiling with a sarcastic comment for everything. At first, I felt lucky that someone like her wanted to be with me. It made me feel special. But the relationship became exhausting quickly. She wanted to party every weekend while I preferred low-key plans. She'd call me boring and say I needed to loosen up. I ended up giving in many times, and before I knew it, I was in places I didn't want to be, drinking things I didn't want, just so she wouldn't call me a party pooper. In the end, she cheated on me with a guy from her friend group. I found out because someone posted photos on social media of her kissing another guy. When I confronted her, she said it wasn't a big deal because it only happened once and I was overreacting. I ended that relationship feeling like maybe I was the problem, that perhaps I was too serious or too good for her. Time passed and I met another girl in college. She was what many would call the goth girl of the group. She always dressed in black, listened to alternative music, and had strong opinions on everything. I was drawn to her intelligence and her unique view of life. However, the relationship was even more complicated than the previous one. She had an explosive temper and we argued almost daily over small things. If I didn't reply to her messages within 5 minutes, she'd accuse me of ignoring her. If I didn't agree with her in an argument, she'd give me the silent treatment for days. The end of that relationship was even more painful than the first because I found out she'd been talking to her ex-boyfriend the whole time we were together. When I asked for an explanation, she said she'd never stopped loving him and I was just a distraction. It hurt deeply to feel like I'd invested time and emotions in someone who never truly saw me as her partner. After that, I stayed single for a while. I focused on finishing my degree, got a job, and tried to keep busy. However, a year later I met who would be my third girlfriend. She was a nurse at the hospital where I was doing my internship. At first, the relationship was beautiful. She was attentive, listened to me, supported me in everything. I thought I'd finally found someone to build something serious with. But over time I started noticing things that bothered me. She was always busy, and while I understood her demanding job, when she had free time, she never used it to be with me. I began suspecting something was wrong and one day decided to ask her directly if there was someone else. She didn't deny it. She said she couldn't continue with me because she'd met a doctor at the hospital who understood her lifestyle better than I did. It was a huge blow because up until then I thought she was different. After those experiences, I started thinking maybe the problem was that I didn't know how to choose partners well. I always ended up with someone who hurt me in one way or another. My friends told me to stop overthinking and enjoy life, but for me it wasn't that easy. I didn't want to go through the same thing again. That's when I met Vanessa. She was completely different from any girl I'd been with. I met her at a gathering with a mutual friend. She wasn't the type to draw attention with her clothes or extravagant actions. She was quiet, polite, and very reserved. She didn't talk much, but when she did, she said interesting things. She told me her parents were very strict and she hardly ever left home except to study or go to church. At first, I thought dating someone with such a different lifestyle might be complicated, but something about her gave me peace. She wasn't used to parties, didn't drink, didn't have many friends, and according to her, I was the first guy she was getting serious with. That made me feel special somehow. Our first months were beautiful. We had simple dates, walks in the park, movie nights at home, long conversations. I felt safe with her. There were no arguments about partying or jealousy over slow replies. She made me feel loved and respected. For the first time in a long time, I felt I could fully trust someone. My friends joked that I'd finally found a good girl from home, someone who matched my personality. And indeed, Vanessa was very different from my exes. Her parents were very religious with clear rules about who she could date and what time she had to be home. At first I thought it'd be awkward, but gradually I earned their trust. I remember the first time I went to her house. I was nervous, like facing a test. Her parents received me seriously but kindly. They asked about my job, family, future plans. I guess they wanted to ensure their suspicions about me were unfounded. Over time, my relationship with them improved. They started inviting me for meals and including me in family gatherings. I felt happy, like after so many disappointments, life was finally smiling at me. I thought this was the relationship that would work, that all the past pain had been worth it to reach this point. As time passed, our relationship became more serious. It was no longer just coffee dates or movies. We started talking about the future, what we wanted in life. It was during one of those conversations that she first mentioned formalizing things. It caught me off guard, not because I didn't want to be with her, but because I hadn't thought about such a big step so soon. I remember that afternoon clearly. We were in the park on our bench, the spot we went to for important talks. She was nervous. I could tell from how she fidgeted with her hands, twisting the ring she always wore. She looked at me and said, "Omar, I've been thinking about us, about what we have." I nodded, waiting. "I love you and I want our relationship to grow. But," she paused and took a deep breath, "my parents won't let me live with you if we're not married." I didn't know what to say right then, not because I didn't want to commit, but because I hadn't considered it yet. In my mind, the logical next step was renting an apartment together, testing daily life before marriage. "We could rent something together," I said after a few seconds of silence. "It doesn't have to be fancy, just a place for us." She shook her head gently. "You know, my parents wouldn't allow that. They won't let me leave home just like that. If I want to live with you, it has to be after we're married." I won't lie, that gave me a lot to think about. That night when I got home, I stared at the ceiling for hours. I wanted to be with Vanessa, no doubt, but was I ready to marry? It was a huge decision that would change my life completely. However, the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. I no longer wanted casual relationships or wondering if my partner would cheat. Vanessa made me feel secure, like I'd found something stable. Days passed and the idea of marriage grew in me. Sometimes I'd catch myself imagining our wedding, our life together. That motivated me to start looking for engagement rings. I'm no jewelry expert, so it was overwhelming at first. I'd spend hours window shopping, comparing prices and styles, wondering which one would be right for her. I wanted something simple yet elegant, representing my feelings. I even asked my sister for advice. She's always had good taste. She came with me to jewelers, and after several tries, we found a perfect ring, a classic design with a small but brilliant diamond. During that time, our relationship stayed intense. Because of her parents, Vanessa and I couldn't spend nights together, making each meeting special. Sometimes she'd tell her parents she was staying at her best friend's and come to me instead. I knew it was risky for her. If caught, there'd be trouble at home, but it made me feel she was as committed as I was. When she arrived at my apartment, she'd bring a backpack with stuff to justify her lie if discovered. Her efforts to make it seem real always made me laugh. There were nights we'd cook together, others we'd watch movies on the couch, and others we'd stay up until dawn talking about dreams, fears, and future hopes. I felt good, even excited. It was like everything was finally falling into place. After so many romantic disappointments, after feeling I'd never find someone wanting something serious, Vanessa proved it was possible. I remember once telling her about my past, the failed relationships and how they scarred me. She listened silently, without judging or interrupting. At the end, she took my hand and said, "I'm not like them, Omar." Her words gave me peace. They made me believe I was finally with someone who saw more in me than a fling. With each passing day, the marriage proposal plan became more real. I even saved more than usual, cutting expenses to buy the ring without debt. I'd imagine the day I'd give it to her, how she'd get nervous, her eyes filling with tears. At night before bed, I'd stare at the ring hidden in my nightstand drawer. I'd get butterflies, nerves and excitement mixed. It was the first time I'd felt this. With the other girls, I'd never reached this point. There was always something making me doubt. But with Vanessa, it was different. Our secret meetups continued, and though sometimes it annoyed me we had to hide, it added a special touch. Each time she knocked on my door, It felt like she was choosing me, defying her family's rules just to be with me. I no longer saw a future without her. My plans, goals, everything revolved around us as a couple. I started thinking about the life I could give her if my job would support a home. I wanted her to feel secure, to know she could trust me. Over time, future talks became more frequent. She'd mention wedding colors she liked, how she imagined her dress, how many guests. I'd listen and nod, picturing it all. To me, those moments were special. They made me feel we were building something worthwhile. Though deep down I still had some fear about such a big step, I clung to the idea that with the right person, everything would work out. That's when I felt life was finally making sense. After years of failed relationships, disappointments, and wondering if I was the problem, I had someone wanting the same as me. And I was willing to do whatever it took to make it work. I don't know exactly when things started changing, but suddenly it wasn't the same. Vanessa, the girl who'd recently texted asking weekend plans, started canceling out of nowhere. At first, she'd say her mom invited her to church, then a family lunch, then her dad needed her for shopping. I tried to understand. I'm not one to complain, especially if it's family. In fact, that's something I liked about her, how close she was to her parents. But gradually it felt different. It was like she wasn't excited to see me anymore, suddenly having a million excuses not to go out. I'd keep reaching out, suggesting plans. Sometimes I'd say it didn't matter if she was busy, I could pick her up for a quick coffee or a park walk. Most times she said no, she was tired or had other plans. I noticed she was glued to her phone more. Before, when out, she'd set it aside easily. Now, in our rare meetups, she'd always have it in hand. If a message came, she'd turn slightly to read without me seeing the screen. I'm not naturally jealous, but those things didn't go unnoticed. There was one night that left a knot in my stomach. We'd planned to go to the movies, but hours before, she texted she couldn't, last-minute family gathering, had to go. I was disappointed. I really wanted to see her, but I understood and said nothing. I decided to stay home, make dinner, and watch Netflix. I wanted distraction, so I picked something light. Halfway through the movie, my phone rang. It was Vanessa's dad's number. He rarely called directly, so I got nervous before answering. "Good evening, son," he said, voice tense. "Hey, it's almost 9 and Vanessa isn't answering her phone. I told her she had to be home by 9 latest. She said you agreed and you were together. Are you on your way?" I went silent for seconds, processing. "Good evening, sir," I finally replied. "Sorry, but Vanessa canceled on me today. She said there was a family gathering, so we couldn't meet." There was an awkward silence. "What do you mean canceled?" he asked, clearly confused. "She told me she was with you, even sent photos of you two together. Don't try to pull one over on me, son." His words hit like cold water. "Sir, I swear I'm not with her. Look, I'll send you screenshots of our chat." I opened Vanessa's chat and sent the ones clearly saying she couldn't meet due to the family gathering. Seconds passed before he spoke again. "I don't know what's going on," he said, more serious. "I don't think she'd lie to all of us. Something's off. I'm going to look for her." My heart raced. "Sir, I want to go with you," I said without thinking. "Okay, son. I'll pick you up in 10. I hung up and stared at the screen. I felt a void in my chest. Fear, anger, something inexplicable. My mind raced with scenarios. Where was she? Why lie? Why use me as alibi? When Vanessa's dad arrived, I saw he was as worried as me. It wasn't just strict dad whims, he genuinely felt something was wrong. I got in the car and we went looking. He tried calling her multiple times, no answer. Finally, after several tries, she picked up. "What happened, Dad?" Vanessa's voice sounded sleepy, like just woken. "Where are you?" "We're watching a movie at the cinema, that's why I can't talk loud." It hit me like a punch. Air gone. I looked at her dad, who looked back equally shocked. "But Omar's with me," he said firmly. Brief silence. "What are you talking about?" she asked, feigning confusion. I couldn't hold back. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" "And with who?" I asked, voice filled with rage. She said nothing, just hung up. The car silence was heavy. I could hear my ragged breathing, feel the anger inside. "Something's wrong," her dad finally said, frowning. "It's not normal for her to lie like this." We spent the rest of the night trying to find her. Calls, texts, no response. She didn't even read notifications. Each hour without word made it worse. The thought of her with someone else stabbed my mind. I didn't sleep that night. When her dad dropped me off, I sat on the couch in the dark, staring at nothing. The image of her saying she was with me, while I was there listening, replayed endlessly. When I woke the next day, my chest felt empty. I hadn't slept. My head spun, trying to understand why she'd lied to my face and what she was hiding. Around 4 p.m. there was a knock. I opened, it was her. Face swollen from crying, mascara run, hands shaking. She didn't speak, just threw herself at me, sobbing harder than I'd ever seen. I stood frozen as her tears soaked my shirt. At first she just repeated, "I'm sorry, forgive me," over and over. Couldn't meet my eyes. When she calmed a bit, she sat on the couch and said she had to tell me something. She couldn't keep lying. My blood froze. Vanessa confessed she'd been talking to another guy on Facebook for months. No one I knew, just some random from a social media group. According to her, it started innocently, casual messages. But over time they flirted, said things she'd never said to me. Then what destroyed me, she admitted they sent private photos. I felt breathless. I'd been with her a while, and every time I asked, even minimally, she'd say no, scared of leaks, didn't trust it. Now she was saying she'd sent intimate photos to a random internet stranger without hesitation. "Why, Vanessa?" was all I could say. She looked down and said she didn't know, got carried away, liked the attention. She confessed the cancellations were to see him, that every family gathering or excuse was a date with him. And the night before, she'd fallen asleep at his after seeing him, that's why she was late. I couldn't speak. Throat knotted, mix of rage and tears, but I didn't want her to see me break. I bit my lips until tasting blood. She kept talking, said she was telling me because she wanted forgiveness, wanted to marry me. She'd seen the engagement ring in my drawer and realized she didn't want to lose me. That was the final blow. I couldn't take it. "Sure, and you think confessing fixes everything? For God's sake, Vanessa, you're not confessing willingly, you're doing it because you had no choice. You disappointed your family and shattered me. That ring was never yours." She dropped to her knees, sobbing harder, clinging to my leg like it could stop me. "Baby, we're perfect for each other. Forgive me, it was just a mistake," she sobbed. I couldn't look at her. "Get out," I said, voice trembling. "Baby, your words hurt so much," she replied. That lit me up. "My words? Tell me something. You fell asleep because you did it all afternoon, right? Good thing we haven't done anything lately, wouldn't want to catch something. Still getting tested, I don't trust you." She looked up, makeup smeared, voice broken. "Do I disgust you now?" Disgust? That's putting it mildly. I have no words for the repulsion I feel. "Get out and don't come back. If you want forgiveness, go to church." She didn't look at me again, just got up and left crying. When I closed the door, the whole apartment felt suffocating. I collapsed on the couch, staring at the ceiling, not understanding how it became this nightmare. Hours later, Vanessa's dad called. I answered, fearing what he'd say. "Vanessa told us everything. I'm so sorry. Believe me, she'll get severe punishment. Thanks for everything, you can count on me for anything. Shame it ends like this." I could only thank him. When I hung up, I sat in silence, gaze lost. I don't know how much time passed, but I thought of something that hurt even more. All my life I'd believed good girls from home, strict parents, churchgoers, were different. That with them, I wouldn't go through the same as with others. I felt like the world's biggest fool for idealizing her, thinking her upbringing and family guaranteed she'd never betray me. I sat there alone, world weighing double, wondering if I'd ever find someone who truly loved me. Recently, I ran into a mutual friend close to Vanessa. We chatted, and after a while, she told me something unexpected. Vanessa was no longer in the city. Her parents sent her to Colombia with an aunt to see if she'd change. According to the friend, things at home were intense. Not just parents but extended family found out. They all disowned her. Vanessa suffered a lot, cried for weeks, relationship with parents completely broken. What surprised me most? Being of age, instead of rebelling or leaving to live her life, she accepted and went. Maybe the pressure was too much or she wanted to try changing. I don't know if it makes me glad or sad. On one hand, it shows her actions had real consequences. On the other, it makes me think maybe I was just a puzzle piece in her life, and what she did wasn't a one-off impulse but something deeper. Today, with a cooler head, I can say I don't hate her. I couldn't even though she broke me. But I don't want to see her again. I learned something. No one's immune to mistakes, no matter upbringing, strict parents, or how good they seem. What matters isn't appearances, it's how they act when no one's watching. Maybe someday I'll fall in love again. But this time I won't idealize people. I won't believe someone's perfect just because they fit my image. If I find someone who truly loves me, it'll be because they show it with actions, not stereotypes. For now, I'm working on myself. And though it still hurts, I know I did the right thing letting her go.